Hello everybody and welcome. This is Roland Hartmann from graphicINmotion.com and it is tutorial time again. This time I want to show you how to create a really cool artistic watercolor style footage reveal. So let's take a look at what we're going to create together. I will quickly show you this RAM preview that I made. So you see it is kind of an watercolor reveal. Looks like your photo is being drawn to a canvas or to paper, and then these watercolor stains grow in and they fill out the colors of this photo. And finally I added some elements like these watercolor stains here and these paint splatters here, and we're going to create this artistic reveal. You can use this reveal for photos, but it will also work with videos. If you are familiar with my work, if you follow me along on YouTube or on Video Hive or wherever you found me, then you probably know that I used this style for a couple of After Effects templates that I created, and I just want to show you this quickly. The last template that I created with this style is the watercolor and ink slideshow, and I will quickly play this, and I will skip the first few scenes because they do not contain any footage. But here you see that the reveal is very similar, and the whole style is more or less exactly what I will show you in this tutorial now. If you want to create a slideshow like that, if you want to save a lot of time, then of course you can get this watercolor and ink slideshow template on Video Hive, or of course also through my website, which is www.graphicINmotion.com. You will find the links to all these files in the description of this video. Okay, now let's jump right into After Effects and let's start working. The first thing I want to do is I will clear everything out here to have a blank project. And now I want to import the assets that are required for this little tutorial. So I double click in my project window and I will import the 3 assets that are required. You can download these 3 assets from my website. You will also find a link to these assets in the video description. So I grab all of them and import them to my project. And now I create a new folder and call it assets, just to keep the project organized, and I drag all of them inside my folder. So let's take a look what we have got here. First of all, we have this paper beachy JPEG here. If I open this up, you see this is simply some kind of paper texture background. Then we have a paint splatters MP4, which is a quick video file of some animated paint splatters. And then we have a watercolor stain, which is an animated watercolor stain. In one of my previous tutorials, I showed how to create these watercolor stains and also these paint splatters and also paint brushes. So if you are interested in this tutorial, then you can visit my website or also my YouTube channel. And on my website, you see we have a tutorial section here, and there is the watercolor elements intro tutorial. And this is exactly the tutorial where I showed you how to create this kind of watercolor intro, and we created these watercolor stains and paint splatters and some paint brushes. And I created this quick intro. It's also more or less the same style as my After Effects template, and also more or less the same style that we are working with today. Okay, so I need to import one more asset, so I double click in my project window and I will import a photo. Okay, I will drag this to the assets too. And now I create a new composition. You cannot see this now because it's outside of the recording area, but just click on composition and then select new composition. You can of course also press Ctrl+N as a keyboard shortcut. For this tutorial, I will use the HDTV 720p 25 frames per second preset, and I will name the first composition my footage composition. And I will set the duration to 10 seconds. Everything else can be set to standard values. So let's create this composition. Now inside my footage composition, I will drag in my footage. So my photo here. As I said, you could also use video for this. So let's scale this down because it's way too big. Something like that is pretty good. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to create my reveal. Therefore, I create a new composition. Again, composition, new composition, and I will call this my reveal elements. Same size, same duration. Okay. So inside this reveal composition, I will now, I drag this out of my assets here, I will now start to build my reveal. Therefore, I use my watercolor stain and drag it into my reveal composition. If you take a look now, the watercolor stain is animating on, but you also see that this video clip is very short. So after about 2.5 seconds, it ends and then it's fading away, or it's turning black or invisible. So I have to change the duration here. So select the layer, right click with your mouse, and under the time option here you can find the enable time remapping effect. So let's enable this, and you see that After Effects will add 2 keyframes. So nothing happened, the clip is still the original length, but now we have these 2 keyframes here. For those of you who are not familiar with the time remapping effect, I want to quickly explain this. The time remapping effect allows you to change the velocity, or the duration I should say, of a clip over time. So for example, if I want to speed up the reveal of my watercolor stain here, I could simply drag my keyframe, this one right here, to let's say about to half a second, and then the reveal will be really fast. You see now the reveal is happening within these first frames. So whatever is between keyframes here can be prolonged or can be shortened. You can of course also set your own keyframe. For example, if I want to speed this up in the beginning, so let's say the first second should be faster, so I create a keyframe at around 1 second, and now I can shift this keyframe to about half a second. So the first part of the reveal will be faster now, and then the second part of the reveal will be slower. Doesn't make much sense now, but yeah, it's just another example how you can use the time remapping effect. But in my case, I do not want to change the timing with the time remap effect. I just want this last frame here to stay visible for the duration of my composition. So if I now take this and just drag it out to the end of my composition, you see that now my watercolor stain is animating on and then stays visible just as a still frame. And this is exactly what I want. Okay, now I want to build a reveal out of this watercolor element. So first of all, I zoom in a bit, make this a little bit bigger that I can see, or that I see what I'm doing. Okay, and now I want to approximately build more or less of a square shape, and I want to make sure that I do not exceed the borders here of my composition. So I press W on my keyboard to get my rotation tool, and I rotate this here. Then I press V on my keyboard to go back to the selection tool and set this right here. Now I duplicate this stain, and now you see if I drag this around, my stain, my watercolor stain, is not transparent right now. So what I can do in this case is I can simply change the blend mode from normal to add. And if I change this to add, then this will blend in and I can overlap these 2 watercolor stains. So let's choose our rotation tool again, rotate this like so, and like so. Now I duplicate it one more time, and again I will rotate it, something like this. Okay, so now I want to sequence them a bit, so I will move to 10 frames, take these 2, shift them over, move further for 10 frames, or 10 frames further, and like so. This is pretty good. Okay, now I will select all of them, press Ctrl D to duplicate them one more time, and I will drag these on top here, doesn't really matter. And now I will drag them down, and I forgot to change the blend mode of this one here, so let's change this to add 2. Okay, and now we'll position these 3. Let's scale this down maybe a little bit, rotate it. Of course, if you have more of these elements, more different elements, then it is a little bit easier and a little bit better to create really cool reveals. But for now, with our limited number of elements, it's okay just to shift these around a bit, like so. And I will use one more copy of this one here, shift it over, maybe scale this now on the y-axis. Let's say I will just, this will, if I put a minus here, this will just flip it, you know, just to create a bit of a variation here. And I think that this looks not too bad. So let's take a look how this looks. We start at the left side with our reveal, and then we reveal to the right side. Not too bad, but the one here is not really nice. So let's select this one. Let's scale this down a bit, make it a bit smaller, because it exceeds my borders and I didn't want this, you know. So like so. Okay, and this one too. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so this is quite nice for our basic reveal. By the way, if you want to have a bunch of these different watercolor stains, I already mentioned the tutorial which shows you how to create them on your own, but I also have a pack of these watercolor stains and paint splatters on VideoHive. So if you take a look at VideoHive, or again at my website, you can find this watercolor and paint splatters and brush stroke pack. And this pack includes 38 animated and pre-rendered elements, and you see you can create similar styles. You can use these as design elements, but you can also of course create nice reveal maps using all of these different elements. So if you want to save some time, then you can buy this pack and yeah, use them in your projects. Okay, let's go back to After Effects, and to make this a bit more interesting, I want to add a few paint splatters here now. So let's drag in our paint splatters MP4. I will drag it in, and now I have to do the same as before. First of all, I have to change the blend mode to add, and then I of course also have to apply the time remapping effect. So right click with the mouse and then choose time, enable time remapping, and then simply take this layer and drag it to the end of our composition. And now our reveal, or our paint splatter, let's take a look here, should stay visible. Yeah, it does. Okay, so now I want to position this. Let's say I want this to start around here to make it visible right here. No, this is a little bit too late. I wanted to come in earlier, so like so, maybe even a bit earlier. Maybe a bit right like here, and rotate it a bit so that it connects with this part right here. Let's see. No, I have to drag it over a bit because otherwise it gets swallowed by these watercolor stains. Yeah, like so. And now I will duplicate this, drag it down here and rotate it around like so. Put it in here, maybe shift it a bit. Let's see what this does now. Yeah, okay, so this is quite nice too. And let's say that we are satisfied with this reveal so far. What I want to do now is I want to create a new composition. In fact, I want to create a pre-comp of my reveal elements here. I can simply select my reveal comp right in my project window and drag it down on this composition icon here and release the mouse button. Now you see that After Effects created a new composition, and my reveal elements composition is already inside this composition. So now I want to rename my composition here, and actually what I should have done, I should have called this reveal elements, not reveal elements, but I should have called it reveal mat. So let's change the name here. I simply select it in my project window and press enter on my keyboard. So let's enter reveal mat here for our first comp we created, and for the new one that I created by pre-comping my reveal mat, I will simply call this footage reveal. So footage reveal, and I made a mistake here. Footage reveal. Okay, a few mistakes. Okay. Now in my footage reveal, I will take my footage composition and drag it beneath my reveal mat. And now I will change my track matte settings from none to luma matte. If you do not see your track matte settings in your timeline, then you can either press F4 and it should appear. If not, then you can right click right here on top of this these columns here, and then you can choose the blend modes, which are right here, modes. If I click these, then you can turn on these blend modes here, the track matte options. By turning on the track matte options, you see immediately what is happening. Now our footage is revealed by our track matte. This is pretty cool. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to create another instance of this reveal. Therefore, I select both of my compositions here and press Ctrl D on my keyboard. Now let's move the top two here to about 1 second, the endpoints to about 1 second. Now we have this reveal going on twice, but we cannot see this now because they are of course overlapping. But now I want to add the cartoon effect to my footage composition to this layer here. So let's go to the effect and presets and type in cartoon. And then we select the cartoon effect that is visible here under stylize. So the stylize cartoon effect, and let's apply this to our footage here. Let's zoom in a bit and I will turn on my transparency grid just to make this a little bit more obvious. Now you see that right here something is happening. You know, the cartoon effect is doing something with our footage, but we want to control this a bit better. First of all, in the effect controls panel, I do not want to use the fill and edges. I only want to use the edges. So I simply change this from fill and edges to edges. And now you see that After Effects creates these outlines. And you also see that these outlines do not look really nice. So they are not smooth. They are chunky and too big and look ugly. So let's enhance the look a bit. First of all, let's turn down the width of these edges here to 0.5, which makes it a lot more interesting already. Now what we have to do, we could turn up the smoothness or the softness a bit, and this is always a little bit of fiddling around. It also depends what kind of footage you are working with. So let's take a look. We will see if I change the detail radius and the threshold. I don't know what this will do. Let's change this threshold from 1.6 to 0.5 for now, just to see what this is doing. Okay, so this was not good and it's not even possible. So I don't know what I thought here. So 1.6 was the value. Let's try 1.3. And now you see that we get even thinner lines. So depending on what you want, you could also type in, I don't know, let's try 5, a crazy value. Okay, then it again gets very, very, very big and chunky. So I think that 1.3 actually was not too bad because I really like it if it's thin. And maybe I should increase the softness. I don't know, let's see. If I increase the softness, I think that this looks a bit better. The standard value was about 60, I think, or was it? Yeah, it was 60. Let's increase this to about 90. Yeah, it's still not completely smooth, but for now I think that I like it. I think it looks quite nice. And then you see that our color is coming in. If you want these lines to stay visible, what you can do is you can select the footage, the top footage, and change the blend mode from normal to multiply. So if you do this, you see that it will multiply with the lines and the lines will stay on your footage. So this also creates quite a cool effect. Okay, so far so good. We created our reveal. Now what we can do is we can pre-compose this reveal once again. So choose our footage reveal right here and drag it onto the composition icon to create a new composition with our footage reveal already inside. And I will rename this now Watercolor Reveal. This is more or less our main composition now. And in my main composition, I can now add my paper background here. So I will drag it in. And now you see that we have this white still visible. So I could now take my footage reveal here and set this to multiply. And if I do this, then the white goes away and it really looks as if these lines are drawn directly onto our paper. And actually I think this looks really good. I can enhance this look even a bit further if I go into my footage reveal composition again. And if I change the opacity of these footage compositions. So I will turn down let's say that the lines should be 100%, this is fine, but let's turn down the opacity of our footage a bit, so to 90%, not too much, you know, just that it blends a little bit into the background better. Yeah, doesn't look too bad. To enhance this even a bit further, or to create even a bit nicer look, I will duplicate my paper background here and Control D, and now I drag it on top of my reveal here, and now I will set the track matte here to Luma matte. And what I can do now is I can put curves adjustment right to my paper background here, and I can play around with this a bit and can increase the contrast a bit. Let's see what this does, just to make this a bit dirty, you know, to apply a bit of a texture here. You can of course also use another texture, so maybe something like this. That looks quite good. So now you see we have a little bit of a texture applied, and if I go into my footage reveal comp, and maybe I will set this back to 100 now. Oops. Yeah, even like this, even better, you know. So I think that this looks pretty good. Let's take a look. Let's make a quick RAM preview. Actually, not too bad. Okay, now we can add a little bit more detail here. So when the color is coming in, I really want to make this a little bit more organic, and therefore I go back to my footage reveal composition again, and I will select my footage, which we should rename, by the way. Let's say this is the footage color and this is the footage lines, just that we know what we're working on, and we want to work with the footage colors. Now let's go to the Effect and Presets window, and let's type in turbulent displace. I want to use the turbulent displace effect and apply it to my footage colors. And you see what this does. The turbulent displace effect, yeah, displaces my image, and I want to increase the amount to quite high, to about, let's say, 150. But you see immediately that this doesn't look really good. But if I now change the size, if I reduce the size quite a bit, so to about, don't know, let's see, 2, yeah, 2 looks quite good, or 3. Then you see that we get this rippling, and this looks nearly as like watercolors running into each other, you know. And this is exactly the effect that I want to achieve. So let's change the complexity from 1 to 3 maybe, and this effect will get even more pronounced. So what I want to do now, of course, is during this reveal, I want this to fade away. So I want the amount to be turned to 0. And I want this to happen during the reveal. So let's say from around 2 seconds, so 1 second into our reveal here, I will set a keyframe for the amount at around 150. I press U on my keyboard to reveal my keyframes here. And at around, let's see, 4 seconds, so over 2 seconds, I want to set this to 0. So now with both keyframes selected, I go to Animation and I go to Keyframe Assistant and turn them into Easy Ease keyframes. You can also use the shortcut F9. Now let's go back to the watercolor reveal and let's play this back, or let's create a RAM preview. And actually this is too slow, so I want this to be gone way earlier, about here. So I have to make this way shorter. So let's take this keyframe here, drag it back here. Let's see how this looks now. Yeah, and I think that this is better. It's a little bit more organic. And actually I think that it is just a little bit too harsh. You know, I like the idea of the effect, but in my case here it's just too harsh. So I go back to my footage reveal and I will change the complexity from 3 to 1, back to 1, or maybe to 2, or maybe to 1.5 even. And I think this is better now. So let's go back to the watercolor reveal and let's take a look, because now it's a little bit smoother. And yeah, actually now I really like it. So another mistake that I just saw is when I look at this edge here, this is a little bit cut off. And this is because if I enter my footage composition, so I scaled this picture down quite a bit, and this is because it's cut off here. So I will increase the scale again to about something like this, and now I shift it up a bit, just like so. And now it should be fine. So let's take a look. I want to replace it a bit, scale it down a bit, make it, I don't know, let's see, 26 should actually work. Yes, now it works. Now I go back to my footage again and shift it up a bit, position it a bit better. And I think now it looks pretty cool. Okay, so now I've corrected this edge here. What we can do now is we can add a few more elements here. So I can go back to my footage reveal composition. And now we can add a few elements. So let's add another instance of our watercolor stain. So I drag it beneath our compositions right here and go to the beginning here, zoom out a bit here. Okay, and again I want to right click and choose time and enable time remapping and drag this out here. And now you see that this looks very strange because my watercolor stain has this black edges right here, so it is not pre-matted, it has no alpha channel. But I can change this pretty easily. So let's go to my effect and presets and let's type in shift channels. And by selecting the shift channels effect and applying it to my watercolor stain, I now can take my alpha from a certain channel. And in this case, I want to take the alpha from the luminance. And if I choose this, you will see what happens. Now my watercolor stain gets an alpha channel. And this is pretty cool. So what I want to do now, I want to take my time indicator and move it so that my picture is fully revealed. Now with my watercolor stain effect selected, I want to add this fill effect to this one. So let's type in fill and then apply to my watercolor stain. And you see now as a standard, the fill effect will color it red, but of course I don't want this red. I want to change this. And in this case, I will take over a color from my photo, maybe something like that. And now I could rotate this a bit like so. Okay. Now let's line this up so that the timing is right, because I do not want this to be visible right now. I want it to reveal together with my colors right here. So at around 2 seconds, the reveal of this should start. So I drag the in point to around 2 seconds. I think this looks pretty good. Now let's duplicate this by press Ctrl and D, create a second instance, press V on the keyboard to select the selection tool, drag it on top here, rotate it a bit, like, don't know, maybe like so. Zoom in here and take over this color from the sky here, and now I go into this color and I want to make it a bit more colorful, so a bit more artistic, like so, a bit brighter. Okay, and I want to create another instance of this one, so let's duplicate this one more time. So let's select the layer, the last one, Ctrl D to duplicate it. Now with my selection tool, I drag this over. Now let's flip this a bit. So let's press S on the keyboard to reveal the scale properties, and let's turn off the constraint proportions, because if I turn this off now I can individually scale the axes. So let's say I want to flip this on the y-axis, and therefore I simply have to change the 100% to -100, and this will turn it upside down. And now with my rotation tool I can rotate it and bring it in here. And you see what I'm doing here. I'm simply building more or less a border or a background of colored elements. And also in this case, this should appear earlier than the other one. So this can already start here. Yeah, right here maybe. Looks quite good. And let's apply another element right here. So let's duplicate this element. Let's move it over right here and scale it maybe. Let's change this back to 100 and let's flip it on the x-axis this time. Now we can constrain the proportions, scale it down a bit. And with my selection tool now, bring this out here. And let's select maybe this blue color here. So let's repeat this here on the edge. It looks not too bad. Maybe I make this a little bit brighter, you know, like so. Okay. Move this up a bit here. Duplicate this one more time. Drag it down here. Zoom out a bit. Like here. And shift it a bit. And now I change the color of this one to some kind of this brown here. Okay. Now let's take a look at our watercolor reveal, how this looks like. I will make a quick RAM preview. And you see that this looks already pretty good. What I can do now is, as a final touch, I will go back to my footage reveal again, and I will enter my paint splatters here. And let's put this on top of my composition right here so that it covers the others. And again, I need to use my shift channels here. Shift channels. Take the alpha from the luminance. And now I will apply a fill effect. And let's say I want this to be right here. Rotate it a bit. Like so, and I want to repeat the color of my car here, so something like that, and maybe make it even a bit smaller, so scale it down a bit. And now let's see, oh, I forgot to apply the time remapping, so now right click and choose enable time remapping. Drag out the layer to the end. Let's see whether it stays visible. Yes, it does. If you pre-compose these elements and then apply the time remapping effect, sometimes they disappear after the last keyframe. Then you would have to add the keyframe one frame earlier. But okay, in this case, it doesn't matter. So I do not want to confuse you. So simply apply the time remapping and it should be fine. I can also change this to multiply if I want. Then it gets really dark. So maybe in this case, I will leave it on normal. It's quite good. Maybe I will lower the opacity to 70 or 95. Yeah. Okay, so, and let's add another paint splatter because it's kind of funny. Let's drag it. Where do we want another one? Up here, let's say. Which color could we feature here? Right here. In this area. Yeah, we will simply change or choose this light bluish, just to add a bit of paint splatter. I can also reduce the opacity even further, 75. Maybe in this case we can use the multiply. Yeah, I like it. And now we have to line these up a bit better because now they are way too early, animating in too early. So the first one should animate in about right here. So let's change the in point of this one to here. Oops. And the second one right now, so a bit later, right here. Let's go back to the watercolor and watercolor reveal composition. Let's take a look what we have got here. And yeah, actually, I really like it. Okay, so this is it for this tutorial. Let's take a look again at what we created. You see these nice outlines, then our color comes in and is rippling or floating together, filling our footage. And yeah, I think that it looks quite good. You could, of course, spend a bit more time and create a little bit of a nicer reveal matte. And as I said, you can, of course, use these paint splatter, watercolor and paintbrush strokes elements that you can get through Video Hive to create really awesome reveals. And one more time, if you want to save a bunch of time and if you want to create a slideshow with a similar look, then I recommend you to take a look at the watercolor and ink slideshow number 2, but also, of course, if you're interested, you can take a look at the original one, the watercolor and ink slideshow number 1, which is similar style, but yeah, it is a little bit more artistic. The controls and the customization options are a little bit limited in this project. So if you want to have the really full control and also a 4K version, then I would recommend to check out the watercolor and ink slideshow part 2. Okay, so I thank you very much for watching. I want to invite you one more time to visit my website, which is www.graphicINmotion.com. There you can find all my After Effects templates, some stock motion graphics, some freebies, and of course all my tutorials. Please subscribe on my YouTube channel, visit my Facebook profile if you want. You can find all my social profiles up here. I'm happy about everybody who visits. I'm happy about everybody who comments, likes, or criticizes my videos. I thank you very much for watching, and I really hope to see you soon. Goodbye.